Woman faces public humiliation after being left at the altar by her fiancé, but what she did next shocked the entire town. Emily's heart raced as she stood at the altar, her white gown cascading around her feet like a waterfall of silk and lace. The church buzzed with excitement, pews filled with familiar faces from all corners of Millbrook. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting a kaleidoscope of colors across the worn wooden floor. Emily's eyes darted nervously to the ornate clock on the wall. 2:15 p.m. Jake should have been here 15 minutes ago. "It's okay, honey," her mother whispered from the front row, offering a reassuring smile. "You know how Jake is with time." Emily nodded, forcing a smile. But as the minutes ticked by, an uneasy feeling settled in her stomach. She glanced at the empty spot beside her, where Lisa, her maid of honor and best friend since childhood, should have been standing. Where was she? The murmurs from the guests grew louder, filling the church with a nervous energy. Emily could feel their eyes on her, a mix of concern and curiosity. She caught snippets of hushed conversations. "Do you think he got cold feet? I saw his car in the parking lot earlier. Where's that friend of hers, the maid of honor?" Pastor Johnson approached Emily, his brow furrowed with concern. "Emily, dear, perhaps we should step into the vestibule for a moment." Before Emily could respond, her phone buzzed in her hidden pocket. With trembling hands, she pulled it out, her heart sinking as she saw Jake's name on the screen. The message was brief, but its impact was devastating. "I'm sorry, Em. I can't do this. Lisa and I have left town. Please forgive me." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Emily staggered, gripping the edge of the altar to steady herself. The phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. The noise echoed through the church, silencing the whispers. "Emily?" her father called out, rising from his seat. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She looked up, meeting the concerned gazes of her parents, then scanning the crowd of guests. Their faces blurred as tears welled in her eyes. How could she tell them? How could she face this humiliation? He's not coming," Emily choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jake's gone, with Lisa." A collective gasp rippled through the church. Emily's mother rushed to her side, enveloping her in a tight embrace. "Oh, my baby," she soothed, stroking Emily's carefully styled hair. Emily buried her face in her mother's shoulder, her body shaking with silent sobs. The weight of betrayal crushed down on her, threatening to suffocate her. Jake, the man she'd loved for years, and Lisa, her confidant since grade school. How could they do this to her? As the reality of the situation sank in, Emily became acutely aware of the pitying looks from the guests. Their whispers grew louder, a cacophony of shock and judgment that seemed to close in around her. "Poor thing. I always thought Jake was trouble. Can you believe Lisa would do such a thing?" For a moment, Emily considered fleeing. She imagined running down the aisle, out of the church, and far away from this town that had witnessed her deepest humiliation. But as she lifted her head, wiping away tears with a shaky hand, something inside her shifted. Number. She wouldn't let Jake and Lisa's betrayal define her. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of breaking her spirit. Taking a deep breath, Emily gently pulled away from her mother's embrace. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and faced the crowd. The church fell silent, all eyes on the abandoned bride. "I know you're all wondering what's happening," Emily began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "Jake and Lisa have left town together. There will be no wedding today." Gasps and murmurs erupted once more, but Emily raised her hand, silencing them. "But that doesn't mean we can't celebrate," she continued, surprising even herself with her words. "We're all dressed up, the reception hall is ready, and quite frankly, I could use a drink and some company. So if you're willing, I'd like to invite you all to join me in turning this day into a celebration of new beginnings." The crowd stared at her in stunned silence. Emily's parents exchanged worried glances, clearly concerned about their daughter's state of mind. "Emily, honey," her father started, "are you sure?" "I'm sure, Dad," Emily interrupted, a newfound resolve in her voice. "I refuse to let their actions dictate how I live my life. Starting right now." As she spoke these words, Emily felt something change within her. The pain and humiliation were still there, but alongside them grew a sense of determination. This day, which had started as a celebration of love, would instead become the first day of her new life, a life where she wouldn't let anyone else determine her worth or happiness. With a nod to the bewildered Pastor Johnson, Emily stepped down from the altar. She walked down the aisle, head held high, as the guests watched in amazement. At the church doors, she turned back to face the crowd. "Well," she said, a small, defiant smile playing on her lips. "Are you coming?" And with that, Emily pushed open the heavy wooden doors, stepping out into the bright afternoon sun. She didn't know what the future held, but she was determined to face it on her own terms. The day that was meant to be her wedding had become something entirely different. The day Emily discovered her own strength and resilience in the face of betrayal. Emily's heart pounded as she stood at the entrance of the reception hall, greeting guests who had followed her from the church. The elegant space, adorned with white roses and twinkling lights, seemed to mock her with its romantic atmosphere. But Emily was determined to reclaim this day. "Thank you for coming," she said to each person, her voice growing steadier with each interaction. "I hope we can turn this into a celebration of new beginnings." As people filed in, murmuring in confusion and concern, Emily's best friend from college, Samantha, rushed to her side. "Em, are you sure about this?" Samantha whispered, her eyes wide with worry. "We can just send everyone home. You don't have to do this." Emily took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "I'm sure, Sam. I need to face this head on. I won't let Jake and Lisa's betrayal define me." The DJ, sensing the unusual atmosphere, began playing upbeat music. Slowly, the tension in the room began to ease. Emily moved through the crowd, engaging with guests and steering conversations away from pity and towards the future. "You know, Mrs. Thompson," Emily said to her elderly neighbor, "I've always admired how you reinvented yourself after retirement. Tell me more about that." As she listened to Mrs. Thompson's story of opening a small bakery, an idea began to form in Emily's mind. She excused herself and made her way to the bar, where her cousin Rachel was nursing a glass of champagne. "Rach, you went through something similar last year, right?" Emily asked, sliding onto a stool beside her. Rachel nodded, her expression softening. "Yeah, Tom left me for his secretary 2 months before the wedding. It was hell, but I got through it." "How did you do it?" Emily leaned in, genuinely curious. "I threw myself into work," Rachel replied. "Started my own consulting business. It gave me purpose, you know." Emily's eyes lit up. "That's it," she exclaimed, startling Rachel. "A business, but not just any business. A wedding planning service for women who've been through what we have." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You want to plan weddings after what just happened?" "Not just weddings," Emily explained, her excitement growing. "We'd offer support, empowerment workshops, everything a woman needs to rebuild her life after betrayal. We could call it New Beginnings." As Emily shared her vision, a small crowd gathered around them. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and soon others were chiming in with ideas and offers of support. "I could help with the legal side," offered Mr. Jameson, a local attorney. "Pro bono, of course." "My studio could host workshops," said Sarah, a yoga instructor from down the street. Emily's parents watched from across the room, their concerns slowly giving way to pride as they saw their daughter's strength shine through. As the evening wore on, the atmosphere in the hall transformed. What had started as a somber gathering became a lively brainstorming session. Emily moved from table to table, sharing her idea and gathering input from various guests. "You know, Emily," said her former high school teacher, Mrs. Martinez, "what you're doing right now, turning this painful moment into something positive, that's exactly what your business could help other women do." Emily nodded, feeling a surge of purpose. "You're right. This isn't just about planning events. It's about helping women reclaim their power and self-worth. As the night drew to a close, Emily found herself standing on the small stage where she and Jake were supposed to have their first dance. The room fell quiet as she tapped on the microphone. "I want to thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice clear and strong. "This day didn't turn out as I had planned, but thanks to all of you, it's become something even more meaningful." She paused, looking out at the faces of friends, family, and neighbors who had supported her through this unexpected journey. "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I'm excited to announce that I'll be starting a new business called New Beginnings. It's a wedding planning service with a twist. We'll specialize in helping women who've faced betrayal to rebuild their lives and find happiness again." A round of applause erupted, along with cheers of support. Emily felt tears prick her eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude and hope. "I couldn't have come up with this idea without your support and inspiration," she continued, "and I hope I can count on your continued support as I embark on this new journey." As Emily stepped down from the stage, she was enveloped in hugs and words of encouragement. The pain of Jake and Lisa's betrayal was still there, a dull ache in her chest, but it was overshadowed by a growing sense of excitement and purpose. Later that night, as Emily lay in bed, still in her wedding dress, she reflected on the day's events. What had started as the worst day of her life had transformed into a new beginning. She had discovered a strength within herself that she never knew existed. As she drifted off to sleep, Emily's mind was already racing with plans for new beginnings. Tomorrow would be the first day of her new life, and she was ready to face it head-on. The weeks following Emily's non-wedding flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Her dining room table, once set for romantic dinners with Jake, was now covered in business plans, sketches, and to-do lists. The constant buzz of her phone, filled with messages of support and offers to help, served as a reminder of the unexpected turn her life had taken. One sunny morning, Emily sat at her makeshift office, sipping coffee from her world's best bride mug, a bitter reminder of what could have been, now repurposed as a symbol of her resilience. "Okay, Em, focus," she muttered to herself, scanning through a list of women she'd contacted, all with stories similar to her own. Their experiences ranged from last-minute cancellations to discoveries of long-term affairs, each tale a painful reminder of the vulnerability of trust. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Samantha, arms laden with bags of takeout. "Thought you could use a break and some brain food," Samantha said, setting the bags on a clear spot on the table. Emily smiled gratefully. "You're a lifesaver, Sam. I've been so caught up in all this, I forgot to eat." As they dug into their lunch, Samantha peered at Emily's notes. "So how's it going? You've been pretty quiet lately." Emily swallowed a bite of her sandwich. "It's overwhelming, to be honest, but in a good way. I've been talking to so many women, Sam. Their stories, they're heartbreaking, but they're also inspiring." She pulled out a notepad filled with scribbles. "Like Sarah here. Her fiancé left her for his ex a week before the wedding. She told me she wished someone had been there to help her navigate the aftermath. Canceling vendors, returning gifts, dealing with the emotional fallout." Samantha nodded thoughtfully. "That's where New Beginnings comes in, right?" "Exactly," Emily said, her eyes lighting up with passion. "We're not just planning weddings. We're helping women reclaim their sense of self-worth and power. I'm thinking of offering services like counseling, legal advice for those dealing with shared assets, even style makeovers for a confidence boost." As Emily continued to share her ideas, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Rachel, her cousin, who had gone through a similar experience. "Em, I hope you don't mind, but I shared your story with a friend who works at the local paper. She's interested in doing a feature on New Beginnings. Call me." Emily's heart raced as she read the message aloud to Samantha. "Wow," Samantha breathed. "This is getting real, isn't it?" Emily nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness washing over her. "It is. I just hope I'm ready for this." Over the next few days, Emily threw herself into preparations for the interview. She refined her business plan, practiced her pitch, and even went shopping for a new outfit, something that screamed confident entrepreneur rather than jilted bride. The morning of the interview, Emily stood in front of her mirror, adjusting her blazer. The woman staring back at her was a far cry from the heartbroken bride of a few weeks ago. Her eyes, once puffy from tears, now sparkled with determination. "You've got this," she told her reflection, taking a deep breath. The interview took place at a local cafe. As Emily sipped her latte, she shared her story with Sarah, the journalist. She spoke about the fateful wedding day, the pain of betrayal, and the moment she decided to turn her pain into purpose. "New beginnings isn't just a business for me," Emily explained, her voice steady and passionate. "It's a mission. I want to create a support system for women who've been where I've been, to show them that their worth isn't determined by someone else's actions." Sarah nodded, scribbling notes. "And how has the community responded to your idea?" Emily smiled. "The support has been overwhelming. From legal advice to offers of workshop spaces, people have really rallied around this concept. I think it resonates because, unfortunately, stories like mine aren't uncommon." As the interview wrapped up, Sarah put down her pen with a smile. "Emily, I have to say, your strength is inspiring. I think your story is going to touch a lot of people." Emily left the cafe with a spring in her step. As she walked home, her phone began to buzz with notifications. Word was spreading fast in their small town, and women were reaching out, eager to learn more about new beginnings. One message in particular caught her eye. It was from Melissa, a woman she'd gone to high school with but hadn't spoken to in years. "Emily, I just heard about what happened and what you're doing now. I went through something similar last year and felt so alone. I would love to help with new beginnings in any way I can. Can we meet?" Emily felt a lump form in her throat. This was why she was doing this, to create a community where no woman would have to feel alone in their pain. As she typed out a reply to Melissa, Emily felt a sense of purpose stronger than she'd ever known. New beginnings was no longer just an idea born out of personal pain. It was becoming a movement, a beacon of hope for women who needed it most. That night, as Emily updated her business plan with new ideas and contacts, she realized something profound. The day Jake left her at the altar hadn't been the end of her story. It had been the beginning of a new, more powerful chapter, one where she was the author of her own happiness. With renewed energy, Emily dove back into her work. New beginnings was taking shape, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey wouldn't be easy, but Emily was no longer afraid. She was ready to transform her pain into power, not just for herself, but for every woman who needed a fresh start. Emily's phone buzzed incessantly as she rushed through the doors of her newly rented office space. New beginnings was no longer just an idea. It had become a thriving business in a matter of months. She juggled her coffee and a stack of files as she answered the call. "Emily speaking," she said, slightly out of breath. "Emily, it's Jenna. We have a situation with the Henderson wedding. The venue double-booked us for next Saturday." Emily's heart sank. The Henderson wedding was for a client who had been left at the altar, much like herself. This wedding symbolized her triumph over heartbreak, and Emily was determined to make it perfect. "Okay, don't panic, I'll handle it," Emily assured her assistant. She ended the call and slumped into her chair, her mind already racing through potential solutions. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. It was Mark, her newly hired event coordinator. "Morning, boss," he said, his usual cheerful demeanor slightly strained. "We've got 3 consultations today, and the Carter bride is having second thoughts about her color scheme." Emily nodded, trying to maintain her composure. "Thanks, Mark. Can you reschedule the first consultation? I need to deal with a venue crisis." As Mark left, Emily turned to her computer, fingers flying over the keyboard as she searched for alternative venues. The pressure was mounting, and she could feel the familiar tendrils of stress creeping up her spine. Hours flew by as Emily made calls, negotiated with vendors, and reassured clients. By late afternoon, she had secured a new venue for the Henderson wedding, a charming lakeside resort that was, in fact, an upgrade from the original location. Exhausted but satisfied, Emily leaned back in her chair, allowing herself a moment of pride. She had turned a potential disaster into a win. This was what new beginnings was all about, facing challenges head-on and coming out stronger. Her moment of peace was short-lived as Samantha burst into the office, excitement radiating from her face. "Em, you won't believe this. We've been featured in Modern Bride magazine. They're calling you a pioneer in empowering wedding planning." Emily's eyes widened as she scanned the article Samantha thrust in front of her. The exposure was incredible, but as she read about the rapid growth of her business, a wave of anxiety washed over her. "This is amazing, Sam, but—" Emily hesitated, voicing her fears for the first time. "Are we growing too fast? I started this to help women, to give them personal attention. Now I barely have time to meet with clients myself." Samantha sat down, her expression softening. "Em, that's why you have a team. You're still the heart of this operation, but you can't do everything yourself." Emily nodded, knowing Samantha was right. She glanced at the photo wall she'd created, filled with smiling brides, women who had found strength and joy again through new beginnings. It was a poignant reminder of why she'd started this journey. "You're right," Emily conceded. "I need to trust my team more. It's just, this all still feels so personal." As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, a recent bride. "Emily, I just wanted to thank you again. You didn't just plan my wedding, you helped me believe in love again. You're changing lives." Tears pricked Emily's eyes as she read the message. This was what it was all about, the personal connections, the transformations. She couldn't lose sight of that, no matter how big the business grew. Determined to maintain the essence of new beginnings, Emily spent the next few weeks implementing changes. She organized team-building exercises, ensuring every staff member understood the company's mission. She also set aside time each week for personal consultations with clients who needed extra support. The balancing act was challenging, but Emily found herself thriving under the pressure. She was no longer just the girl who'd been left at the altar. She was a successful businesswoman, a mentor, and a symbol of resilience for many. One evening, as Emily was locking up the office, she overheard two of her employees chatting. "I never thought I'd love working at a wedding planning company," one said. "But this place, it's different. It feels like we're really making a difference." Emily smiled to herself, a warm feeling spreading through her chest. Despite the challenges, moments like these reminded her that she was on the right path. As she walked to her car, Emily's phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Local entrepreneur Emily Chen nominated for Young Business Leader of the Year. Her steps faltered as she read the headline. The recognition was flattering, but it also brought a fresh wave of pressure. The whole town was watching her now, waiting to see what she'd do next. And somewhere out there, Jake and Lisa were probably seeing her success too. Emily took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Let them watch, she thought. She was ready for whatever came next. New Beginnings wasn't just a business anymore. It was a movement, and Emily was leading the charge. As she drove home, Emily's mind was already buzzing with new ideas. The journey hadn't been easy, but she wouldn't have it any other way. She was changing lives, including her own, one wedding at a time. Emily strode out of her office, briefcase in hand, feeling accomplished after another successful day at New Beginnings. The summer sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot. As she fumbled for her car keys, a familiar voice stopped her in her tracks. "Emily!" She froze, her heart pounding. Slowly, she turned to face the man she'd once thought she'd spend her life with. Jake stood a few feet away, looking disheveled and uncertain. "Jake," Emily said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "What are you doing here?" He shuffled his feet, avoiding her gaze. I saw the article about your business. You've done really well for yourself. Emily's jaw tightened. Is that why you're here? To congratulate me? Jake shook his head, finally meeting her eyes. No, Lisa left me. I made a huge mistake, Em. I'm so sorry. The words hung in the air between them. Emily felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, hurt, and surprisingly, pity. Jake, please hear me out, he interrupted, taking a step closer. I know I hurt you, but seeing how well you're doing, how strong you are, it made me realize what I threw away. Can we try again? Emily stared at him, stunned. The man she'd once dreamed of spending her life with now stood before her, begging for a second chance. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine it, going back, pretending the betrayal never happened. But as quickly as the thought came, it vanished. Emily straightened her shoulders, a small smile playing on her lips. No, Jake, we can't. His face fell. But Em, listen, she said, her voice gentle but firm. What you and Lisa did, it broke me, but it also led me to discover a strength I never knew I had. I've built something meaningful, something that helps other women find their strength too. I'm not the same person you left at the altar, Jake, and I'm grateful for that. Jake's shoulders slumped. I understand. I miss you, Em. Emily nodded, surprising herself with the lack of bitterness she felt. I know, but sometimes the best thing we can do is learn from our mistakes and move forward. That's what I've done, and that's what you need to do too. She reached out, briefly squeezing his arm. I forgive you, Jake. Not for you, but for me. I hope you find happiness, I really do. But my happiness no longer includes you. With that, Emily turned and walked to her car, leaving Jake standing in the parking lot. As she drove away, she caught a glimpse of him in her rearview mirror, a solitary figure growing smaller in the distance. At home, Emily poured herself a glass of wine and stepped out onto her balcony. The encounter with Jake had stirred up old memories, but they no longer held the power to hurt her. Instead, she felt a profound sense of closure. Her phone buzzed with a message from Samantha. Hey, we still on for dinner tomorrow? Got big news. Emily smiled, typing back a quick confirmation. Her life was full of new adventures, new friendships, and new purpose. She had moved on, not just in words, but in her heart. As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Emily raised her glass in a silent toast. To new beginnings, to strength found in unexpected places, and to the beautiful uncertainty of the future. She was ready for whatever came next, knowing that she had the power to turn any challenge into an opportunity for growth. The Emily who had been left at the altar was gone. In her place stood a woman who had taken her pain and transformed it into purpose, her heartbreak into hope for others. And that, Emily realized, was the greatest new beginning of all. The aftermath of Jake's unexpected visit left Emily feeling surprisingly energized. She channeled this newfound clarity into new beginnings, determined to expand its reach and impact. One crisp autumn morning, Emily stood before her team in their newly renovated office space. Today, we're launching our empowerment workshops, she announced, her voice brimming with excitement. It's time we go beyond wedding planning and truly focus on rebuilding lives. The team erupted in applause, their enthusiasm matching Emily's own. As they dispersed to prepare for the day's first session, Emily retreated to her office, taking a moment to collect her thoughts. A knock on the door interrupted her reverie. It was Sarah, a recent client turned friend. Hey, Em, got a minute? Emily smiled warmly, gesturing for her to enter. Always. What's on your mind? Sarah hesitated before speaking. I've been thinking about what you did for me, how you helped me through my breakup and plan my new beginning celebration. I want to give back. I want to share my story at today's workshop. Emily's eyes widened. Are you sure? It's a big step. Sarah nodded firmly. I'm sure. If my story can help even one person, it's worth it. As the workshop began, Emily watched from the back of the room as Sarah took the stage. The audience, a mix of women at various stages of healing, listened intently. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over, Sarah began, her voice shaky but determined. My fiancé left me for someone else, and I felt worthless. But then I found new beginnings, and more importantly, I found myself again. Emily felt a lump form in her throat as Sarah continued, detailing her journey from heartbreak to self-discovery. The room was silent, save for the occasional sniffle or murmur of agreement. As Sarah concluded her story, the room erupted in applause. Women began to stand, sharing their own experiences and offering words of encouragement to one another. Emily watched in awe as the space transformed into a haven of support and understanding. Later that evening, as Emily was locking up, she received a text from an unknown number. I was at your workshop today. I've been struggling since my divorce, but for the first time, I feel hopeful. Thank you. Emily smiled, her heart full. This was why she had started New Beginnings, to create a community where women could find strength in shared experiences. The success of the workshop sparked a new idea. Emily began planning a series of retreats designed to provide intensive support and guidance for women navigating major life transitions. As she worked late into the night, sketching out plans and making calls, Emily realized how far she'd come. The pain of Jake's betrayal had faded, replaced by a sense of purpose and fulfillment she'd never known before. A few weeks later, Emily stood on a beach, watching as the participants of their first retreat gathered around a bonfire. Women from all walks of life, each with their own story of heartbreak and resilience, shared their fears and dreams under the starlit sky. One woman, her face illuminated by the flickering flames, spoke softly. I never thought I'd smile again after what happened to me, but being here, listening to all of you, I feel like I'm not alone anymore. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. She thought back to that fateful day at the altar, how lost and broken she had felt. If someone had told her then that her pain would lead to this moment, she wouldn't have believed them. As the night wore on, Emily found a quiet spot away from the group. She pulled out her phone and opened her gallery, scrolling to a photo she hadn't looked at in months, a picture of her and Jake on their engagement day. For a moment, she stared at their smiling faces, remembering the hope and love she had felt. Then, with a deep breath, she deleted the photo. It wasn't about erasing the past, Emily realized. It was about making room for the future, a future she was building on her own terms, surrounded by a community of strong, resilient women. As she rejoined the group, Emily felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her journey had been painful, but it had led her exactly where she needed to be. Emily's focus returned to new beginnings, with renewed vigor after Jake's unexpected visit. The closure she felt propelled her to expand the business beyond wedding planning, embracing a more holistic approach to helping women rebuild their lives. One crisp morning, Emily gathered her team in their newly renovated office. Today, we're launching our empowerment workshops, she announced, her voice brimming with excitement. It's time we go beyond weddings and truly focus on rebuilding lives. The team's enthusiasm matched Emily's own as they prepared for the day's first session. As Emily retreated to her office to collect her thoughts, a knock on the door interrupted her. It was Sarah, a recent client turned friend. Hey, Em, I've been thinking about what you did for me, Sarah began hesitantly. I want to give back. Can I share my story at today's workshop? Emily's eyes widened. Are you sure? It's a big step. Sarah nodded firmly. If my story can help even one person, it's worth it. As the workshop began, Emily watched from the back of the room as Sarah took the stage. The audience, a mix of women at various stages of healing, listened intently. 6 months ago, I thought my life was over, Sarah began, her voice shaky but determined. My fiancé left me for someone else, and I felt worthless. But then I found new beginnings, and more importantly, I found myself again. Emily felt a lump form in her throat as Sarah detailed her journey from heartbreak to self-discovery. The room was silent, save for the occasional sniffle or murmur of agreement. As Sarah concluded, the room erupted in applause. Women began to stand, sharing their own experiences and offering words of encouragement to one another. Emily watched in awe as the space transformed into a haven of support and understanding. The success of the workshop sparked a new idea. Emily began planning a series of retreats designed to provide intensive support and guidance for women navigating major life transitions. Weeks later, Emily stood on a beach, watching as the participants of their first retreat gathered around a bonfire. Women from all walks of life shared their fears and dreams under the starlit sky. One woman, her face illuminated by the flickering flames, spoke softly. "I never thought I'd smile again after what happened to me. But being here, listening to all of you, I feel like I'm not alone anymore." Emily felt tears prick her eyes. She thought back to that fateful day at the altar, how lost and broken she had felt. If someone had told her then that her pain would lead to this moment, she wouldn't have believed them. As the night wore on, Emily found a quiet spot away from the group. She pulled out her phone and opened her gallery, scrolling to a photo she hadn't looked at in months, a picture of her and Jake on their engagement day. For a moment, she stared at their smiling faces, remembering the hope and love she had felt. Then, with a deep breath, she deleted the photo. It wasn't about erasing the past, Emily realized. It was about making room for the future, a future she was building on her own terms, surrounded by a community of strong, resilient women. The success of New Beginnings continued to grow, attracting attention from various quarters. One morning, as Emily sifted through her emails, a message caught her eye. It was from Olivia Reeves, the editor-in-chief of Empowered Woman, a renowned lifestyle magazine. "Dear Emily," the email read, "we've been following your incredible journey with New Beginnings. Your story of resilience and empowerment aligns perfectly with our magazine's ethos. We'd love to feature you in our next issue. Are you interested in an interview?" Emily's heart raced as she read the email twice more. This was a huge opportunity, one that could catapult New Beginnings to national recognition. With slightly trembling hands, she typed out an enthusiastic reply, agreeing to the interview. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Emily worked with her team to polish their brand message, update their website, and prepare for the potential influx of new clients. She also spent hours rehearsing potential interview questions with Samantha, determined to present herself and her company in the best light possible. On the day of the interview, Emily arrived at the magazine's sleek downtown office, a bundle of nerves and excitement. Olivia Reeves greeted her warmly, immediately putting her at ease. "Emily, it's wonderful to meet you," Olivia said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "I have to say, your story has really touched a lot of people here at the magazine." As the interview progressed, Emily found herself opening up about her journey, the pain of betrayal, the moment of decision at the altar, and the challenging but rewarding process of building new beginnings. "What would you say to women who are going through similar experiences?" Olivia asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. Emily paused, considering her words carefully. "I'd tell them that their worth isn't determined by someone else's actions. That pain can be a catalyst for growth, if we let it, and most importantly, that they're not alone. There's a whole community of women out there ready to support them." Olivia nodded approvingly. "That's powerful, Emily. Now tell me about your plans for the future of New Beginnings." Emily's eyes lit up as she shared her vision for expanding their workshops and retreats, and even the possibility of writing a book to reach even more women. As the interview wrapped up, Olivia shook Emily's hand warmly. "Thank you, Emily. Your story is exactly what our readers need to hear." The weeks following the interview were filled with anticipation. When the magazine finally hit the stands, Emily was floored by the response. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages of support and inquiries about New Beginnings. One evening, as Emily was leaving the office, she bumped into Mark, her event coordinator. "Hey, boss," he said with a grin. "Have you seen this?" He held up his tablet, showing an online forum where women were discussing the article. Emily scrolled through the comments, her eyes widening. Women from across the country were sharing their own stories of heartbreak and resilience, inspired by her journey. "This is incredible," Emily breathed. Mark nodded. "You're changing lives, Emily. Not just here, but everywhere." That night, Emily sat on her balcony, reflecting on how far she'd come. The article had brought a flood of new clients and opportunities, but more importantly, it had connected her to a vast network of women all supporting each other. Her phone buzzed with a text from Samantha. "Saw the article. You're a rock star, Em. Drinks tomorrow to celebrate?" Emily smiled, typing back a quick agreement. As she looked out at the city lights, she felt a sense of purpose stronger than ever before. New Beginnings was no longer just a local business. It was becoming a movement. The journey ahead would be challenging, she knew. Expanding the business, reaching more women, balancing growth with personal connection. These were all hurdles she'd need to overcome. But as Emily thought about the women she'd met, the stories she'd heard, and the lives she'd touched, she knew it was all worth it. She was no longer defined by the woman left at the altar. She was Emily Chen, founder of New Beginnings, a beacon of hope for women everywhere. And she was just getting started. The success of the magazine feature catapulted New Beginnings into the national spotlight. Emily found herself juggling a flood of new clients, media requests, and business opportunities. The small office that had once seemed spacious now buzzed with constant activity as her team worked tirelessly to keep up with demand. One morning, as Emily sipped her coffee and scrolled through emails, a message from a prominent venture capitalist caught her eye. They were interested in investing in New Beginnings, proposing to fund a nationwide expansion. Emily's heart raced. This was the opportunity she'd been waiting for. A chance to reach women across the country, to transform New Beginnings from a local success into a national movement. But with it came a new set of challenges. She called an emergency meeting with her core team, Samantha, Mark, and Sarah, who had recently joined full-time after her powerful speech at the workshop. "We have a big decision to make," Emily began, outlining the investment offer. "This could change everything for us." The team's reactions were mixed. Mark was enthusiastic about the growth potential, while Sarah expressed concerns about maintaining their personal touch. Samantha, ever the voice of reason, suggested they take a step back and consider all angles. "We need to remember why we started this," Emily mused. "It was never about becoming a big corporation. It was about helping women rebuild their lives." Over the next few weeks, Emily threw herself into research. She traveled to different cities, meeting with potential partners and scouting locations for new offices. She spoke with other entrepreneurs who had gone through similar expansions, seeking their advice and learning from their mistakes. During a visit to a potential Chicago office space, Emily received a call from an unknown number. It was Lisa, her former best friend who had run off with Jake. "Emily, I saw the article." Lisa's voice was hesitant. "I just wanted to say congratulations and I'm sorry for everything." Emily's grip tightened on her phone. The apology she had once longed for now felt hollow in the face of all she had accomplished. "Thank you, Lisa," she replied evenly. "I hope you're doing well." As she ended the call, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The last lingering threads of her old life had been cut, leaving her free to fully embrace her future. Returning to her hometown, Emily made her decision. She gathered her team once more. "We're going to expand," she announced, "but on our terms. We'll grow slowly, ensuring each new location maintains our values and personal approach. Quality over quantity." The team nodded in agreement, relief and excitement visible on their faces. Over the next few months, Emily oversaw the opening of two New Beginnings offices, one in Chicago and another in Atlanta. She handpicked the teams, ensuring each member understood the company's mission and shared its values. The expansion brought new challenges. Emily found herself traveling frequently, dividing her time between the different locations. She missed the daily interactions with clients, the hands-on approach that had defined the early days of new beginnings. One evening, exhausted from a day of meetings in Atlanta, Emily FaceTimed Samantha. "I don't know, Sam," she sighed. "Sometimes I wonder if we're losing sight of what's important. Are we still making a difference?" Samantha smiled reassuringly. "Em, check your email. I sent you something earlier." Emily opened her inbox to find a video compilation. It was filled with testimonials from women across the country whose lives had been touched by new beginnings. Women who had found strength, started new careers, and even found love again, all crediting the support they'd received from Emily's organization. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she watched. This was why she had started New Beginnings. This was what made all the challenges worthwhile. "Thank you, Sam," Emily whispered, her resolve strengthened. "I needed that reminder." As she ended the call, Emily looked out over the Atlanta skyline. New Beginnings was growing, evolving, but its heart remained the same. She was helping women write new chapters in their lives, just as she had done for herself. The journey ahead would be challenging, but Emily was ready. She had come so far from that day at the altar, and she knew that the best was yet to come. As New Beginnings continued to flourish, Emily found herself at the pinnacle of success. The company now had offices in 5 major cities, and their empowerment retreats were booked months in advance. Emily's days were filled with strategic meetings, press interviews, and overseeing the expansion of their programs. One crisp autumn morning, Emily sat in her office reviewing the latest financial reports. The numbers were impressive, showing steady growth across all branches. A smile played on her lips as she remembered the early days of scribbling business plans on her dining room table. A knock on the door interrupted her reverie. It was Mark, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Emily, we have a situation," he said, his voice tense. "Margaret Williams, the investor we've been courting for the West Coast expansion, she's pulled out." Emily's brow furrowed. "What? Why? Everything was going so smoothly." Mark hesitated before continuing. "She received some information about you, about the company. She says she needs time to reevaluate." A cold feeling settled in Emily's stomach. What kind of information? Before Mark could answer, Emily's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Your success is built on lies. The truth will come out." Emily's mind raced. Who could be behind this? What lies could they possibly be referring to? Over the next few days, Emily tried to contact Margaret, but her calls went unanswered. Meanwhile, whispers began to circulate in the business community. Vague rumors about the authenticity of Emily's story, questions about the company's practices. Emily called an emergency meeting with her core team, Samantha, Mark, and Sarah. "We need to get ahead of this," Emily said, her voice firm despite the worry gnawing at her. "Whatever's being said, we know the truth. We've helped hundreds of women. That's real." The team nodded in agreement, but the tension in the room was palpable. They had come so far, and now it felt like everything was teetering on the edge. As they brainstormed strategies to counter the rumors, Emily's phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Park, 7 p.m. Come alone if you want to save your precious company." Emily's heart raced. Should she go? It could be dangerous, but it might be her only chance to confront whoever was behind this. "I need to step out for a bit," Emily announced, making a split-second decision. "Keep working on our response strategy. I'll be back soon." The sun was setting as Emily arrived at Riverside Park, casting long shadows across the path. She scanned the area, her nerves on edge. "Hello, Emily?" She whirled around to find herself face-to-face with a woman she didn't recognize. The woman's expression was a mix of anger and triumph. "Who are you?" Emily demanded. Why are you doing this?" The woman's laugh was bitter. "You don't remember me, do you? I'm Jennifer. I was engaged to Tom, the man your friend Lisa left for your ex-fiancé." Emily's mind reeled. She vaguely remembered hearing about another jilted fiancé in the aftermath of her own wedding disaster. But she had been so focused on her own pain at the time. "I'm sorry, I don't understand," Emily said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "What does this have to do with new beginnings?" Jennifer's eyes flashed. "You built your company on the story of your heartbreak, became a symbol of resilience. But where was your empathy for others who suffered the same fate? You never reached out, never offered help. Your success is built on selective compassion." The accusation hit Emily like a physical blow. Had she been so focused on her own journey that she'd overlooked others who needed help? I didn't know," Emily stammered. "I was just trying to heal, to help others like me." Jennifer scoffed. "Well, now everyone will know the truth about St. Emily. Unless what?" Emily asked, a mix of dread and hope in her voice. "Unless you're willing to make things right," Jennifer replied, a challenge in her eyes. "To truly live up to the ideals you claim to represent." As the last rays of sunlight disappeared behind the trees, Emily realized she was facing a crisis that threatened not just her company, but everything she stood for. The path forward was unclear, but one thing was certain: the biggest test of new beginnings was just beginning. Emily stood in the park, her mind racing as she processed Jennifer's words. The weight of the accusation settled on her shoulders, but with it came a moment of clarity. "You're right," Emily said, her voice steady. "I was so focused on my own pain and healing that I didn't see beyond it. But that doesn't mean what we've built isn't real or valuable." Jennifer's expression softened slightly, surprised by Emily's candor. "I can't change the past," Emily continued, "but I can do better moving forward. Will you help me?" Jennifer hesitated, clearly not expecting this response. "What do you mean?" "Join us," Emily proposed. "Help us expand our reach. Make sure we're not overlooking anyone who needs support. Your perspective could be invaluable." After a long moment, Jennifer nodded slowly. "I'll think about it." The next day, Emily called an all-hands meeting at New Beginnings. With Jennifer by her side, she addressed her team and, via video conference, the staff at all their locations. "We've faced a challenge that's made me realize we need to do more," Emily began. She explained the situation, not shying away from her oversight. "We're going to make changes. We're going to broaden our scope and make sure we're truly living up to our name." Over the following weeks, Emily worked tirelessly with her team to implement new initiatives. They set up a community outreach program to actively seek out and offer support to anyone affected by similar betrayals, regardless of their ability to pay for services. Jennifer's insights proved invaluable, helping to identify blind spots in their approach. As word of these changes spread, the tide of public opinion began to turn. Margaret Williams, impressed by Emily's honest handling of the situation, not only reinvested but increased her support for the West Coast expansion. Months passed and New Beginnings emerged stronger than ever. The company's renewed commitment to inclusivity and community support resonated with even more women, and their impact grew exponentially. On the anniversary of the day she was left at the altar, Emily stood before a crowd at the opening of their new Los Angeles office. As she cut the ribbon, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 3 years ago, I thought my life was over, she began, her voice carrying across the attentive audience. I was betrayed, humiliated, and lost. But that moment of despair became the catalyst for something beautiful. She gestured to the people around her, her loyal team, Jennifer now among them, and the faces of countless women whose lives they touched. New Beginnings isn't just about moving on from heartbreak. It's about recognizing our shared experiences, supporting each other, and growing stronger together. We've all faced challenges, made mistakes, and learned from them. That's what makes our community so powerful. As applause filled the air, Emily felt a profound sense of accomplishment and purpose. She had taken her pain and transformed it into a force for good, touching lives far beyond what she had ever imagined. Later that evening, as Emily watched the sunset from her hotel balcony, she received a text from Samantha. "You did it, Em. You've created something truly amazing." Emily smiled, thinking of the long journey from that fateful day at the altar to this moment. She had faced betrayal, overcome self-doubt, and pushed through challenges. But more importantly, she had created a legacy of empowerment and resilience. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Emily felt at peace. New Beginnings had become more than just a company. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of community. And for Emily, it was the most beautiful new beginning she could have ever imagined. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Now, how about another one? To watch another nice story, just click on the video appearing on your screen.